All right, the recording has started. Okay, so
Okay.
is there something that you want to discuss? You want to talk before we get started?
So I just have questions. I have a list of 14 questions and they're specific. So if we can just discuss those and then we can talk in general at the end.
Sure, go ahead.
Okay, so I know I'm one of my first questions is can you include a waiver in an informed consent form?
Okay, so this question they keep asking a lot, and this is how they're going to ask you. They're going to want you to know the difference between liability waiver and informed consent. And in fact, I got this question asked twice. Like I think my fifth question and my 140th question was same, kind of similar. So here's the thing. Informed consent would mean that you're just informing them about the risks associated with exercise, which means this form is kind of less formal, as in it's not really going to protect you in case of any kind of negligence. You cannot really present it in a court of justice. Okay, so this is not going to protect you on all those things. It is just informing the customers, informing the clients about the risks associated with exercise. That's it. However,
Mhm.
liability waiver on the other
Okay.
hand, liability waiver on the other hand is more about, the client's voluntary abandonment to file suit, which means the client is literally telling you that, you know what, if something happens to me, my trainer is not responsible for that. So liability waiver is something
Okay.
that you can actually take it to the court and it's going to protect you in case you're being sued for something. However, however, in case of gross negligence, it's not going to help you out. In case, let's say,
Yeah.
you fail to spot your
Gross
client.
negligence is yeah.
So gross negligence, it can be of two types. There is something called act of commission versus act of omission. Act of omission would be you're omitting something. You were supposed to do something, but you didn't do it. Okay, so let's say you were supposed to spot a client, but you didn't spot. You failed to do it, what you were supposed to do. That would be omitting, act of omission. Whereas act of commission, on the other hand, is you committing something. It could be like committing a crime. Let's say you're sexually harassing your client. Okay, let's say you committed a mistake. Like let's say, your client is suffering from a lower back pain, lower back injury, and you are ACE certified, which means you have already studied that for someone who has lower back issues, you shouldn't be giving them straight leg raises, whether it is in supine position or pronated position, doesn't matter. You shouldn't be giving them any kind of straight leg raises because that is going to aggravate their pain. So in spite of knowing this, you still give them a routine which involves them doing straight leg raises. So this would be an act of commission, right? So in all of these cases, your liability waiver is not going to protect you. You're still going to get sued. Cool?
Okay. Yeah. So you can't so because they're two different things, you can't include them in the same form, right?
Yeah, you can include it. They're both two separate things, right? Informed
They're two
consent
different
is
things, yeah.
you're just informing the risks associated with exercise. That's it. The liability
Okay.
waiver, client's voluntary abandonment to file suit.
The suit. Yeah. Okay. And then when you exercise in higher elevation, I had a question about that. If do you increase the duration and decrease the intensity, or do you
So,
decrease both?
so it's actually once, let's say, we know that there needs to be a time that you need to give them to get acclimatized, right? It's like 14 days, like 2 weeks. That's what you need to give
Yeah,
them.
it's a week. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, if they're suddenly going from sea level to high altitude, this is what you're going to do. But apart from that, you need to give them prolonged warm up, prolonged cool down, and most importantly, give them more rest between their workout sets. Okay, so you're probably going to decrease both duration as well as intensity.
And okay. Yeah.
both
Okay.
both You're going to
Okay.
decrease both because they're just getting used to it, right? So longer rest intervals, less intensity, and let them adapt before you increase anything, whether it's duration or intensity.
Okay. Okay. And then, one of these questions during spinal flexion, what muscle is active? I said latissimus dorsi, but it was quadriceps lumborum or something like that.
Okay, QL, quadratus lumborum.
Yeah, that
Quadratus
one.
lumborum. Okay,
But I don't know
so
why it was that, because it's so obvious when you do spinal flexion. Like, isn't it like your lats that are here? So
okay, so you need to understand what your lats really do. Okay, before you can answer this question, forget about quadratus lumborum. You can kind of memorize that stuff. Okay, it's kind of an internal
okay.
muscle. So I want you to know more about latissimus dorsi, because that is going to help you elsewhere, not just for spinal flexion. You might get more questions on that because that is an important muscle, right? So your latissimus dorsi, it's a huge muscle. It goes all the way down. It kind of connects to your lumbopelvic region, kind of your back towards your lower back. It kind of goes all the way there. Although we think it's just this much, it actually has an extension all the way back. It goes there. Okay. So what are the activities that your latissimus dorsi is capable of? First of all, since it's attached this way, you can pretty much guess, right? It's going to pull your hands this way because it's kind of attached here. It's going to kind of pull you this way, right? So let's say this is my latissimus dorsi muscle, right? So it kind of goes and attaches to your humerus, your glenohumeral joint. This is how your latissimus dorsi actually looks like. Okay, so it can do, so if I pull this, what do you think will happen? If I pull this, adduction is going to happen, right? Adduction, D for dog. Adduction will happen. What else can you think? If I keep my hands here and I'm pulling this, what do you think will happen? Extension of my shoulder joint. Extension of my shoulder. Because look at it, it's kind of attached here to this point. So if I keep my hands here and trying to do flexion, it is going to stretch my latissimus dorsi. But if I pull this latissimus dorsi, it's going to do extension of my shoulder joint. That's number 2. That's point number 2. Point number 3, since it comes and attaches here, it can also cause this. What do you think this movement is? It's called as internal rotation. Exactly. Yeah. Yep, you got it. So it's internal rotation, right? So these are the 3 main things that your latissimus dorsi is capable of. So basically, it is a shoulder joint muscle. Think about it. It has nothing to do with your spine. However, having said that, since it goes all the way back towards your lower back, it can contribute a little bit in extension of your spine. So let's say it's kind of here. Like, what do you think will happen if it pulls me? Since it's attached to my lower back, it kind of does this. It can contribute a little bit in extension of the lumbar spine. But of course, it's not the prime mover. The prime mover is your erector spinae and some muscles in your back, which is kind of cause that extension, right? So latissimus dorsi in no way can do anything for your spine. So when you do this, what do you think you're actually using? Just because your latissimus dorsi is situated here, it's not really attached to your spine. And why would it help you in spinal flexion? Right? Yeah. So spinal flexion can mean this. Spinal flexion can mean this. Because this is called lateral flexion of the spine. This would be like the forward flexion of the spine. So for that, you have the deep core muscles. You have the rectus abdominis, which is going to help you to flex your spine in the sagittal plane. You have the lateral trunk flexors, including or primarily your quadratus lumborum, which is responsible for flexion of the spine in the frontal plane. This one, which is lateral trunk flexion. Now, yes, since your latissimus dorsi is kind of going all the way here, it might help out just a little bit in extension, in any kind of spinal movement, just a little bit. But primarily, it is a shoulder joint muscle. However, quadratus lumborum is a spine muscle. It is kind of situated in the core and it has attachment to the spine. So obviously, it's going to help you in some kind of spinal movement and not, whereas latissimus dorsi is going to help you in some kind of shoulder movement and maybe just a little bit for lumbar extension. That's it.
Okay, makes sense. Thank you.
Yeah.
And then I had like application questions based on like legal guidelines and stuff. So like specific ones were like, if a client is eating out of a vending machine, what's the best thing to tell them? Like, other than telling them to go to choosemyplate.com, like what else do you tell them?
Okay, So basically, what is kind of the scenario? Like, are they asking you for some advice related to food?
Yeah, they're saying like, what do you tell them? Do you tell them to make healthier choices? Like you're allowed to tell them that much at least, right?
Definitely. So I'll tell you what you're allowed to tell them. You're allowed to tell them about making healthy choices, of course. That is something that you have to do as a trainer. Second thing is you
Mhm.
can help them with portion sizes. You can tell them, you know what, a fist is equal to so many calories, or a fist is equal to this much portion size. So you need to, in your plate, you need to add more whole grains, and your oil should be in moderation. So you can talk to them about portion sizes, right? You can talk to them about some vitamins and some nutrient information regarding certain food items. Like you can tell them, you know what, if you have cold fish like sardines or tuna, it's going to give you a lot of omega-3, which is essential fatty acids. All of these informations you can definitely give them. In fact, you can also give them pamphlets, which is
Okay.
are you there? Can you hear me?
Okay. Okay. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's what you can do. All the only
Hello.
prop
Right,
the
I can
only
hear
thing
you.
is,
Okay.
can you hear me now? Is it cool?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, all right. So the only thing you should not do is you cannot help them implement a diet. Let's say they tell you, you know what, I know how to do this diet. I just want a little bit of help from you. I want you to help me implement this diet. I'm currently following intermittent fasting, or I'm probably doing ketogenic diet, and I want some help from you. I want you to help me with this. So you can't do that. You cannot help them with a specific diet or help them with meal planning. These are stuff that you'll not be doing.
Okay.
You will be recommending them to either a nutritionist or some kind of a registered dietitian.
Okay. Okay. So, and the next question is, if a client sees an exercise in an infomercial and they want to incorporate it in their program, what do you say to them? Like, are you allowed to use those exercises in your program?
Well, that's a tricky question. So if they see some exercise infomercial and they want to use it, you have to check, like, what is that exercise? Is it something which is a contraindication for this client? Is it some exercise? How good is their movement? How good is their stability? So all of these things will come into the picture, right? So you need to see some options. Without options, it's kind of difficult to judge what exactly you're going to do. You cannot like directly tell them, go for it if it has a
Like
lot
you
of
can,
use.
like if they, can you tell them like what muscle it works? Like, yes, this works. Your, like, let's say it's a chest press, like it works your pecs. Like we can incorporate this in in your
One,
routine. Or
100%. You can definitely educate
okay,
them what that particular exercise does, which muscles is it working,
okay,
because that is part of your job, right? That's why you're studying all these things.
yeah,
Like what muscles are being worked every time you do a bench press or when you do a
yeah,
squat. Some people, they don't even know why they're doing a squat. So it's definitely your duty to help them, educate them about that. Yes, for sure.
okay, okay. And then before you work out outdoors in a public park, what precautions do you have to take before the training a client there?
Okay, so you got to take a number of precautions. Number one, you need to make sure that that place is legal in the first place. You're allowed to train there in the first place, else everyone will be in trouble, right? That's something you need to be taken care of. You need to make sure that that's not some lonely place, abandoned place. There should be some connection. Like in case there is an emergency, you should be able to call 911, right? There should be some internet reception in that area. It shouldn't be some place where you have no internet connection or any internet reception. That would be a bad idea. Okay. Third thing, you need to make sure there is enough like a hydration facility, like in case they need some water. That would also be something that you need to make sure of, right? Because it's kind of your responsibility. You are taking them there, right? And last but not the least, you need to make sure that they have signed the agreement to participate. In group setting, you have to, it's almost like
Yeah,
informed consent. It's like informed
yeah,
consent
it's in
or
group
group training.
settings.
Exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. So these are some things that you need to make sure of if you're taking them outside for
Wait,
training.
but how come they have to sign the agreement to participate? It's not like they're doing exercising in a group. It's just you and the trainer. But they
It's
have to sign the informed consent.
Yeah, because anytime you're training a client, you don't know, right, what can happen to this client. Like during the
Yeah.
exercise, they might trip and fall, and they might put the blame on you. Right? They'll tell you, you know what,
Hmm.
I didn't know that these are the activities that I should participate in. I thought it would be some yoga kind of session or stretching kind of session, but he made me do some jumping
Okay.
jacks and I sprained my ankle.
Okay.
Boom, now you're in trouble,
Okay.
right? So at least they should be informed the
Yeah.
risks associated.
Okay. Okay. So what kind of things can a trainer use in an advertisement that they want to post on social media, and what can they not use?
Okay.
And maybe that has something to do with intellectual property, or because I remember reading in my notes about intellectual property,
Yeah.
about what they can and can't use, right?
Right. So you can definitely introduce yourself as an ACE certified trainer, and you can, promote your personal training business, saying that you're an ACE certified trainer. You can do that. What you can't do is you cannot really sell a product by showing the ACE logo. You there?
Sorry? Yeah, sorry.
Yeah.
I
So
missed that last part.
yeah. So what you can't do is you cannot sell a product, let's say a protein powder or a health drink or any kind of product using the ACE logo. That would be a breach, right? What else?
Okay.
What else? You cannot use someone else's slogan, training slogan. Like let's say a client has made a trainer, a different trainer, or a different company has used a slogan, right? Like train hard or go home. Or let's say, you want to look like an athlete, train like an athlete. Some kind of slogan which is kind of famous, like Nike slogan or whatever.
Yeah.
That would be an intellectual property, right? Because it's something that they design. You can't do that. And if someone has designed a program, that is also an intellectual property, right? Because they use their own mind to design that program. You cannot steal someone else's program and use it at your will, right? That is something you cannot do. What else? Yeah, so that's pretty much it. You cannot use your ACE logo to promote anything that is, illegal, like any kind of sports drink or something of your own stuff.
Yeah.
Also a book that has been written by someone else. You cannot just promote that or use that for your own purposes. So these are some intellectual properties that you should not be using.
Can you like say like, oh, I had a client and they lost so much weight, or can you talk about your clients?
Yes, you can talk about your clients as long as you're not giving out their private information. Like this is the person's name and this is where he lives, or these are the conditions he
What
had.
if you say this is like I had a client and they lost 90 pounds and you're advertising that?
Yeah, that you can definitely do that. You can do that.
Okay.
In fact, with your client's permission, you can even use their name as a
Okay.
testimonial, right? You can use testimonials all the time. You can do that, no problem.
Okay. Okay. And what happens if you leave a client's information unattended at a desk? Like what legal guideline is that breaching?
Okay, so you have something called as HIPAA, HIPPA. So every client has a right to maintain their health information as confidential, right? So you cannot discuss
Yeah.
these things with some other people or some other clients about this person. You have to keep it confidential. So they usually like to
Mhm.
ask it this way, what is the best way to keep this confidential? So either you keep it locked under some drawer where no one has access to it, okay? Or the best thing would be you can put it in an electronic file with password protection. That would be the by far the best way because it's an electronic file, no one can access it, and it's password protected. That would be the best way. You keep it
Okay.
confidential. So they're gonna confuse you with all of these questions. How are you? Should we keep it on the top of the drawer? Should you hand it over to a client? Should you take it home with you? Stuff like these.
Okay. And then I had a lot of questions about like implementing like programs and making programs for people with specific diseases and stuff, like people with dyslipidemia. Like
Okay.
what kind of exercise does I need?
So let me tell you exactly what is important from that section. You know,